Small Business Spotlight, powered by Greg Fay Insurance. Every single week, our goal is to bring you real conversations with real entrepreneurs because we know that as small businesses go, so go the community. I'm Tony Miltenberger, my co-host Greg Fay. Greg, tell everybody who we got on the show today.
Man, so happy. This one I've been looking forward to a long time. We're booked out into June, and that was what my original ask was going to be for Greg. And then we had an opening come up, and he really bent his schedule to be a part of this right here. So much stuff he's going to be able to impart upon business owners that watch this, and his story is really pretty remarkable. I'm going to give you just a tad bit of it right here. Greg McAfee is a Dayton-based entrepreneur, an HVAC industry leader. HVAC business owners around the country attended his university, not only to learn how to run a business, but how to successfully run a service organization, which he is expert level, no doubt. He's also a business coach. He founded McAfee Heating and Air in 1990 and prides himself on the fact that he started it with $274 in a used truck, growing it into one of the Midwest leading HVAC companies. He's an author. He sold that company since and has started Platinum RV Storage. And there's no doubt at the level that business will be available to customers. He's known as an author, a speaker, a consultant. He's known for coaching, like I said, home-based businesses nationwide through his books, boot camps, and medias. Greg McAfee, welcome aboard. We are thrilled to have you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
Greg, one of the things that I notice immediately as I look through your past and your present is your willingness to jump in and get your hands dirty, that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. I would love to kind of hear from your story. When is the first time you realized that working for yourself was so much better than working for someone else?
Well, it was a process because when I started, I didn't know what I didn't know, one of my favorite sayings, and I didn't go to college. I served in the Marine Corps. I got out, I went to trade school, and when I got out of trade school, I jumped right into my first job, and about 9 months later, he said, "You'll never make it as a mechanic," and he let me go. So, I did that whole process to get fired from my first job. Started a second job and lasted about the same amount of time, and then they closed their doors. And I learned a lot from both of them on basically what not to do. And so the first 5 years for me, I preached this a lot, was doing nothing but surviving. So the first 5 years was surviving. I started at a kitchen table, and then I built a garage to work out of. We worked out of that garage almost 7 years, and I almost did $1 million the last year I worked there out of the garage. And then we started building really nice facilities, separating ourselves from everybody else. But I probably knew somewhere between the 5th and 10th year what freedom really means in a working environment and being an entrepreneur and running a business. Because the more I learned, the more fun it began to be. When you don't know much and you're not willing to learn, and you don't have a business coach or a board of advisors and stuff like that, it's a struggle all the way. So I think it was somewhere between the 5th and 10th year. And that was probably when, probably around the 10th year, I actually started making money because I invested everything I made right back into the business for the first 10 to 15 years.
I tell you, so you say something that a lot of people is a misnomer. It's probably the myth that keeps people out of owning a business. You mentioned you didn't go to college, but yet what you teach business owners, especially in the service industry where it's so difficult and where there's so much competition, you have become a master of all of the business principles. You become a master of branding and communicating, not only through the university that you taught the service businesses with, but with your podcast, with the way that you market, your marketing. Anybody who lives in any part of the vicinity has heard McAfee's breath of fresh air. So branding and communication were huge, but yet you didn't go the regular route of learning how to do that. Where did that come up? Did you bump your head on some things, or did that seem to come natural? Because it sure seems easy to you right now.
Yeah, a lot of people can make things look easy after they bump their heads 100 million times. They have a concussion and several times. But seriously, people ask me all the time, did you major in communications? Well, actually, I was in the Marine Corps. I was a grunt with a radio, so that was my communication school. So, but I wanted to always be different than every other heating and air conditioning company from day one. I used to compare myself back then in the day, early 90s. Wendy's was the hamburger place and McDonald's was the fast food place. I told my little team of 5, 6, 7 people out of a garage, we want to be the Wendy's of heating and air. And we started doing things differently, like keeping clean trucks and having professional truck lettering with vinyl back then. Because, you used to be able to paint your name on the side of a truck. And clean trucks, never anything on the dashboard. That was all part of our brand. Opening the back door to the truck, and it was neat and clean. So if a customer followed you out to the truck, you could open it and not have to apologize for a mess. Everything was like that. My inside of my garage was as nice as any office could be, and everything we did mattered. And I started thinking about that. And what does the customer see? And that was very important to me, because I would always picture, what does the customer see when I pull up? Even though I had a used truck, even though it didn't have air conditioning, it was always clean. It was lettered properly. It was my little billboard when I didn't have work and I just drove around Dayton hoping people could see that little logo on the side of the truck or the back of the truck. But I also, Greg, I learned a lot from other people, and that's the key. I was never afraid to learn. I never knew it all, and I don't know it all today, and I'm constantly learning. I've read over 1,200, 1,300 books now. I got hooked up with Aileron, which is an entrepreneurial center in Dayton, Ohio. Clay Mattiel founded it. Clay owned Imes Pet Foods, sold it for about $2.3 billion in the Dayton market. And he had a heart for businesses in Dayton because there was a lot of large companies going out of business. So I got hooked up with some really smart people at Aileron, and they took me under their wing and they taught me business because I didn't know business. I took the first president's course at Aileron in 1997, and it was so far over my head I didn't know what was going on. Clay Mattiel sat in my class. That's how small they were then in 1997. But Bill Matthews, Dave Sullivan, they took me under their wing. They were two of the founders of Aileron. And I was a sponge, and I followed them everywhere. I attended every class they taught, even if I had to attend it 3 times. I barely passed high school. I barely graduated, rather, and I hated school. It was boring to me, and so I wasn't the fastest learner in the world, but until I figured out what I liked, and then everything I like, I can learn extremely fast, and I normally got good grades in it. A lot of kids and a lot of parents don't understand that about their children. Let them figure out what they like, and then they will excel. Because everybody knows if you do what you love, you never work. You just do what you love, and that's what I figured out. And I love branding, I loved advertising, I love marketing, and I figured out how to do it better than anyone. And then I taught it and spread it throughout the United States, because people would come from all over the United States to attend I actually called them the business boot camp, and I had it in the green and brown Marine Corps camouflage logo. So, but it's pretty cool. Again, I loved what I did.
One of the interesting things about your story is your ability to kind of get your crew and your company, your team, to rise to the standard. I think there are a lot of business owners out there who are so caught up in the day-to-day kind of work, the struggle, the stress, the anxiety of how we're going to do this, or how we're going to make payroll, or how we're going to keep that customer happy, that they kind of settle on the standard of the brand and the culture. If you're talking to maybe an executive or entrepreneur who is listening this is feeling extra convicted about what their standard is, how do we live in the tension of, I got to make money and I need to hold the standard?
Well, first of all, entrepreneurs need to, especially new young ones, they need to figure out what their standard is. A lot of them don't know. I ask them, what's your standard? What do you stand for? Well, I don't know. I want to make money. Well, you want to make money, go work for someone else. Because you've got to have a standard. You've got to stand for something. And I was never satisfied. I'm still not today. I'm never satisfied with status quo. I'm never satisfied with it being okay. I shoot for excellence. Actually, I shoot for perfection, like Vince Lombardi said, and then I hit excellence along the way. So, but I'm never satisfied. And so many young business owners, they need to get away from the business for a minute. I challenge them to do that all the time. Some do it, some don't. Some can, some won't. And get away from the business for a day. Go get away and leave your phone off, for goodness sake. I guess that was one thing that helped me back in the early 90s. I didn't have this strapped to my hip. And it sometimes it gets in your way. But get away from the business, write down, just get old-fashioned piece of paper and a pen and start writing down what's important to me, where do I want to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years, and start setting some goals and a vision. And most importantly, like you said, what are my standards? You got to figure it out.
I tell you, I made some notes here as I was kind of preparing for the interview. You kind of already touched, everybody wants to know what are strengths and weaknesses that a good leader has, not a business owner, but a good leader, those strengths and weaknesses. And you've already talked about, and it's been a common thread in the 40-ish podcast, the 40-ish business owners that we've talked to, you're saying a lot of the same things. I think people, when they sit down to watch this podcast right here, they're going to say that Greg already kind of knew this stuff. That's why he was successful. And you've just conceded, you've just shown your hand and said how much you don't know, how much you saw it from other business leaders, and how much you read on what you want to do. So those identified kind of some of your strengths and weaknesses. When you're coaching somebody, a business owner, what do you look for in them? How do you help them identify their strengths and weaknesses and then excel at them?
Good question. First of all, again, if you're human, you know your strengths and you know your weaknesses. We used to interview people, hundreds of people over the 35 years I owned McAfee. And we would say, what's your strength? Well, they could come up with a couple. Then I say, what's your weakness? And they're just looking at me like deer in headlights. I'm like, dude, do you want me to name 10 of mine? You've got to know your weaknesses. You've got to know who you are. And you've got to know, if you don't know your weaknesses, how are you going to improve, for goodness sake? And so the strengths of a good leader, first of all, is to be able to bring out the strengths of someone else and figure out, what seat they need to be on, if they should be on your bus, and then what seat they should be on in the bus. Because a lot of times we learned the hard way. Trust me, I wasn't always good at that. We would put people in the wrong seat, and they didn't work out. If we would have moved them around like we ended up doing later in the business life, they would have lasted and stuck longer and actually enjoyed what they did. But you have to help people as a leader. You have to help people see their strengths and not necessarily call out their weaknesses, but help them see their weaknesses. And, if I love when I interview someone back in the day and I'd say, what's your weaknesses? And they'd say, I'm extremely impatient. I do things too fast sometimes. I can work with those guys all day long. And I can coach people like that too, because they're human and they admit their weaknesses, and then we can fix it from there. But if they can't admit any weaknesses, I can't coach them. I can't hire them. And so, you just got to be real. We're all real. We're just human. We just have more zeros at the end of a net worth, and that's it. Everybody else, we're all human. Just admit your weaknesses and let's fix them, and you will grow stronger as a leader, and then you can help people grow. And that's the key, just helping people. Zig Ziglar said, I can get anything I want out of life if I help enough people get what they want.
Zig Ziglar.
One of the great things about your story is the way that you've decided to dive into helping future generations, right? Coaching, the content creation. I think a lot of owners want to be a content creator so that they can give what they've learned or are learning to future generations. Social media obviously comes with its plus and minuses and all that it does. You've kind of built a tribe of people that are listening to the things that you're doing or watching. You've been on a health journey the last couple of years. You've been very vocal about that. So let me ask you kind of a two-part question. One, when did you realize the power of creating content and putting it out into the world? And two, how do you decide what's the right message in the right season?
Probably 18, 19 years ago, I started writing. And again, you guys, I mean, I had to go back and take vocabulary classes and vocabulary on tape back in the day just to learn proper words because I sucked at that. I mispronounce words all the time. Still do sometimes. It's a joke in my family. But I started writing articles the best I could, and I sent them into national publications in the HVAC plumbing electrical world, and all of a sudden magazines started picking them up, national magazines, and they would print them. Well, that was the coolest thing in the world for me. Actually, I wrote something, they edited it, fixed it up, and posted it. Greg McAfee, and then I started sending. They would request more. Hey, can you write something about this? And it just led to that, which led to, hey, do you do any consulting? Do you do any coaching? It sounds like you know what you're doing. Can you help me? And that's what it led to, which led to, hey, let's try to do some boot camps. And this was before boot camps were cool. This was early 2000s. And we did. And, the first boot camp we had, I think we charged like $450 a person. And we had about 25 people come to Dayton, Ohio from everywhere in the United States. And if you're coming to Dayton, Ohio for 2 days, what are you going to do? You better want to learn about business. We're not in Florida or Arizona or Las Vegas. This is business time. It's 2 days, how to grow your business. And it was extremely serious, but we had a lot of fun, and we did a good job. So that's how I got started. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question, or did I answer it?
Well, the second part was really about how do you know which message to give in which season?
It's I gain information by those I coach and the feedback I get from others during my podcast. If they say I really need work on that, I know that there's more than one who need to work on that. So I really hit that topic hard. I might hit a topic in a different way on my podcast for 3 or 4 weeks in a row. Because I know there's a lot of people. If there's one, there's 1,000. And if there's 1,000, there's 10,000. So it's just hitting targets that I knew as a business owner that I had to work on. And what worked for me also was a key to what I talk about, because I'm not going to talk about anything I wasn't really good at. I try to stay on the topic that I'm good at, and I can help people understand it and use it and grow. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of that stuff is just how you think, how an entrepreneur thinks. You've got to be positive. You've got to see it. You're the leader. See it. If you don't see it, your team's not going to see it. You're not going to grow. So a lot of it is like getting in people's heads and letting them understand that they're in charge. They're in charge. They're the leader. And people are watching them every minute. From the time they walk through the door, what kind of mood they're in, because it sets the pace for the entire company, till the time they leave, and just how long do they stay. That's something else we can talk about later. But I ask entrepreneurs before I coach them, how many hours do you put in a week? If it's 100, they need to work on shaving that off a little bit. If it's 30, I don't know if I can help them. No wonder they're suffering. So, so I think I get most of my content from other people on what they're struggling with. And then I'll throw in some good stuff that has really worked for me.
I want to make an observation before I ask the next question. The observation is, now you've said 3 times that you listen to other people And this last little question you answered, you said that you listen to the people that you're teaching. And I can't stress enough to business owners to hear what Greg McAfee is saying here. He said that he admitted that he didn't know how to write, so he learned. He didn't know how to run a business, so he sought out business owners. And he gave a class, and when somebody was saying something he could learn, he listened. So that's just an observation. I want to go back. I want to talk about discipline because, being all three of us are veterans of the military. Tony alluded to a little bit your health challenge. And I love how you brought everybody along with it because it certainly probably gave you an accountability measure, number one. But number two, it probably gave you probably felt like I got to keep doing this because I put it out there. I said I was going to do this. That's number one. But number two, I think it inspired a lot of people. And I know that took a lot of discipline to do that. Where did that discipline come from? And when you see other entrepreneurs, how do you help bring out the discipline that they need to have?
Yeah. Again, asking a lot of questions. I don't want to jump around on you guys, but we learned also. A lot of people say, and remind me to get back to this, please, because this is important for people who own a business and they're having problems finding people, and they're having problems getting the young people. That's all you hear is people don't want to work anymore. We started interviewing a process of what did you do when you were younger, and we figured out if they were responsible when they were younger and they had discipline, like did they make their bed? Simple as that. Did they have a job? Did they have a part-time job? Did they mow their own yard? Did they clean their room? When we interviewed differently, and we only did this the last couple of years I owned the company, when we figured out that people had natural discipline and actually had parents who made them do things, they were more likely to stick at McAfee, because McAfee was not an easy place to work. McAfee, we require discipline. We require things done a certain way. And I don't care, it was harder for us to hire people with experience than it was people right out of high school, which we did for many years because we had a full training facility, and we partnered with a college, HVAC college, that we used their accreditation.
Oh, wow.
So that's my discipline came at an early age. I mean, I back in the day, I had a paper route, I had a vegetable route. I made my bed every day. I had to clean my room. I had to pick up my shoes at the door and put them in my room. There were certain disciplines that carried over for many, many years. And then, of course, the Marine Corps only pushed me to the next level. This boot camp alone taught me some disciplines that that I still apply today. And then reading things on very, very successful people, how they do things. Like I've been teaching lately what's called the 3-second rule. When your alarm goes off in the morning, you got 3 seconds to get up. If you wait 4, you're going to overthink it, talk yourself into hitting the snooze button. There is no snooze button. Okay, the discipline comes within the first 3 seconds. Do you have it or don't you? And a lot of people are going, "Oh, that's nuts." Well, you're not going to be at a high level then. That's okay. But those who want to be at the highest level, they go, "I'll take the challenge. I'll accept it." So just little things like that. You do things that people aren't willing to do. I just told a young guy yesterday. I was at a funeral yesterday in Akron, Ohio. Long story. I sat next to a couple, and he had a handyman business. He was like 32 years old, and he was telling me some things. He's very go-getter, and I left him with this: do what others aren't willing to do, and you'll always be successful. Is it simple? No. Is it simple to say? Yes. Is it easy to do? No. And that's why there's only a handful of successful people. So if that answered your whole question, Greg, if not, I'll keep going.
It did. It talked about accountability, and like Tony asked earlier, how do you get these standards? How do you pass down the standards that you want to have in your company? You number one, identify what they are, and then you just talked about holding people accountable to them. And then I love the discipline thing. You didn't talk about how you lost the weight, but now I don't even feel like I need to re-ask it, because you gave a peek behind the curtain on what people, and maybe somebody's not trying to lose 100 pounds. Maybe somebody's just trying to pass down standards in a business that they've started. It's right there. So no, you did a great job. T, go ahead.
This will be my last question as we head towards the end of our time. You mentioned the funeral yesterday. One of the things I love to hear from guys who have done so much is kind of a little bit about their own obituary. So let's say, hopefully 100 years from now, we're sitting around talking about Greg McAfee. What do you want to be remembered as?
I think, I want to be, this could sound like a church answer for many, but I want to be known as a Christian husband, a Christian dad who did what he said he wanted to do and did it when he said he would do it. Just that alone, it's probably set you apart from everybody else. It's not going to get you into heaven per se, but that's what I want to be known for. And I want to leave a legacy that he helped a lot of people get to the next level that may not have been able to do it on their own.
I don't have another question, T, but I just want to, my wife, you said something that my wife tells our kids all the time, and predominantly one of them: be where you say you're going to be, when you say you're going to be there. And you have impressed more people if you consistently do that right there. If you tell somebody you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're going to be somewhere, be there. And if you gave them a time, be there on time. You spoke to all of that right there. That's just an observation. I love what you said. T, go ahead and land it, brother.
Greg, the last question we always love to ask people, it's the hardest question we're going to ask you the whole day. We love to talk to entrepreneurs. Who are 2 or 3 local people that you think we should absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, have on the podcast?
I have a good friend named Kelly Ammon. He's my best friend for probably 38 years now. He's a CPA by trade, but he runs a company for, he does a little bit what Greg does. But he does more of the life insurance side of things, investments, and stuff like that. But he would be good. Let's see. I would think that there is.
It's always a stumper. Don't feel bad for hesitating, because it always seems to be the one stumper for everybody right there, because everybody's afraid they're going to miss somebody.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me think about it. I'll send you guys a couple names. Is that fair?
Great.
Yeah,
That'd
absolutely.
be great. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Greg, thank you so much for the time today. And to everyone watching and listening, thank you so much for being a part of our community. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. And hey, give our page a follow. We love to continue to support future entrepreneurs. We're learning together, because we know, just like you do, that small businesses are the backbone of our community. So until next time, be sure to support your local businesses, and we'll talk to you guys real soon.